Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Thursday, everyone. Here's a look at the ES and the daily time frame here. The previous session ended up outside day up. We were looking for the same setup here the last couple of days in a row with this expanding range here, and we got it. Got a little bit more range than anticipated with an outside day yesterday. And we also have a buildup of energy, very similar to what we've discussed here in the YM. This 12-day buildup of energy is significant and suggests that the next couple of weeks could have quite a bit of volatility and increased price range. But which way is it going to come out? Which way is it going to materialize? Is it up? Is it back down? This right here is pretty decent upside breakout, but it coincides with the previous month's high, the previous quarter's high. We're in a big time red zone up here. So again, if this were to fail, it would be right about here. Failing above the previous session's high, failing at the previous month's and quarterly high. And then if there were some failure to happen through the midpoint of the previous session's range here, that could be a significant early bearish start to the month. So that's something to keep an eye on. As always here within this major melt-up phase, the market really has to prove a rejection right now. Otherwise, the path of least resistance remains to the upside until proven otherwise. So if there was a rejection here, a rejection of these levels, a failure to hold that level down the road here, whether it's today or the next couple of days, that could be significant. Until then, this market right now still pushing to the upside in the near term with the potential to go get 6,900 and as far as 6,930 over the next 5 to 10 days. All right, let's take a look here at the NQ. NQ looks similar. You have that build-up here, 12-day compression there. You have your outside day yesterday with a bullish finish. Again, like the ES, you're finishing at the previous month's high, the previous quarter's high. You're through the previous quarter's close here, and that's also the midpoint of the previous session. So all the key levels are lined up here as well. This one is showing a bit more strength here heading into the RTH Open, especially against something like the YM, which is really lagging right now. Again, with this strong start here, how do we finish the day? Do we finish the day with a failure to hold above previous highs here, or do we continue to drive above? If we're going to continue to drive to the upside, again, this range right here suggests quite a bit of upside up ahead. That could take us somewhere into the 26 plus zone. 26.2, I believe, would be a measurement that gets us right about there over the next 5 to 10 days if the breakouts are going to resume to the upside as they have. So again, if we do get that follow through to the upside in the ES and the NQ, those are the upside targets that could be in play early this month. But a failure, any rejection in this zone, and it could be a hard push in the other direction to begin the quarter. So again, this is a very tricky zone up here. So continue to proceed with caution here, especially if you're trying to fade down, because again, the path of least resistance remains to the upside until we see a strong rejection. Now looking at crude oil, this one right now down about 0.5%, and finally pushing through 61.45, currently trading 61.46. That's been the major area of support for a while here. We've had quite the push into that zone and finally pushed just below it, 61.22, but we haven't quite seen a really big push through the level to get us down into those 58s. Those 58s are elusive. 58.20 significantly elusive here lately. It could have gotten it multiple times, but it continues to be held here, continues to be held down here, and that's been the range right there for a good 2 months. So having had this expanding range continue to develop on the top end, do we eventually find the low and snap back within the range, or is this finally the moment we break down? So keeping an eye on this edge right here. As we noted before, around October 2nd typically marks the seasonality into the middle of December here. So any bounce, any rally could be seen as a selling opportunity on a seasonal basis up ahead. All right, looking at gold futures here, this one's up about 1/4% right now at 3,900. Continues to hold at these highs. Inside day at the moment, so a holding pattern at these highs. Closing at the highs here of the quarter, which has been a significant quarter to the upside. As we noted, even with the higher value relationship, any pullback could be a buying opportunity for a continuation into 4,000. The problem is we really haven't seen much of a pullback. We've seen little rotations like this, or perhaps even sideways moves like this, and then we've seen it just rip to the upside. So we may have another day here of sideways here, and maybe next week we start the path higher and we're into 4,000 next week. So even if we see something as shallow as 3850 to 4,000 could be the next 150 point move in gold. Looking at the YM, super narrow range heading into the RTH Open for the YM. We've been noting the 12-day compression here, but right now this is about 1/4 of average range right now. If we were to bring this up on a 1-day basis, 26% of ADR right now heading into the RTH Open. That's 108 points, and it's been averaging 411 on a 10-day basis, 407 on a 5-day. So the last 5 to 10 sessions here have been very uniform in price range. Right now heading into the RTH Open, 100 points. That's very, very narrow right now, and quite a difference between the YM and Tech, the NQ, for example. This one, the previous session, you can see tried the breakout here, but kind of fell back in, and we're still in that range. So not quite the breakout that we're seeing in the ES, or especially the NQ. A little bit different here. Is this going to lead to, again, a positive breakout move? Sometimes that high right there, while it was a good day one high, we mentioned it should be the high for at least the next 1 to 5 days, and it has been. Sometimes a high like that gets tested again, and we go higher high failure and then snap back. So perhaps we do get that follow through to the upside, but again, not as easy here in the YM compared to the others, but the overall uptrend remains intact. For example, here's the early pullback to begin last month into the pivot range, check mark higher. Right now, that's the first trading day of the month, already into the pivot range, bouncing up. Does that get us higher highs in the very near term up ahead? We'll see. All right, looking at Bitcoin, this one's up 1.5% right now. A very strong move this week. Incredibly bullish. This right here was just significant. The low was also the open price. How often does that happen? Then you have a high range rally. A big time Morobozu bar, where most of the bar's range is body from open to close, and then you can see this just dramatic rally we've seen over the last 4 days, which is the biggest strength we've seen in a while on a 4-day basis. It rivals this move and kind of this move, maybe even this move, and a lot of those moves were met with resistance shortly thereafter. This is still the higher high failure that we're kind of basing everything off of. So while we have gotten through 118, still proceeding with a bit of caution here on this move to the upside. It still looks a little atypical, but at the same time, if it is a breakout from this compression, we have the potential to see quite a bit of upside. But again, we've had trouble up here, we've struggled up here, and after this initial push to the upside, can it regather and make another wave higher, or does it fail to hold or find acceptance above the previous month's high? So a lot to think about here with Bitcoin. It has been sideways for months and months and months, and the rallies really haven't led to follow-throughs lately. So again, keeping this one closely watched here as it tries to get a breakout, but again, watching for signs of potential failure. Perhaps a rotation back into VWAP or a bit lower would be much better from a longer term perspective, but clearly the short term directional conviction up. Same thing for Ethereum here. This one's up about 1.33% right now, bouncing within its range. This one also has looked a bit different lately. It looks more like a distribution up here. It has had more of a rounded right edge to its recent price action, and sure, this could break to the upside, but this type of heaviness right at all-time highs after significant strength from 1400 this year, it looks again a little top heavy. So any rally right now, proceeding with caution at this moment. If we get any significant day one rejection on this right edge, that could be huge for directional conviction over the next several weeks. So again, in the range right now, trying not to be overly bullish or bearish right now on these moves, as we're kind of just trading within the range for now. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.